we're going to get good news in October, which I don't think is consensus. And that would mean you probably have an ETF actually trading by early December.
All right, guys, you heard it here. We have billionaire and legendary investor Mike Novogratz, who comes out to tell us that we have really positive news in October with a Bitcoin ETF trading in December. So let's break down this video and go over what happened with the SEC, or actually Gary Gensler testifying in Congress and getting grilled by congressional members, and my thesis of what potentially could go down here. Most people believe, especially with ARK Invest ETF getting denied or delayed, that there's no likelihood of an ETF getting passed. But what does Mike know that we don't know? What is going on for him? So let's dive in and look at some of these other clips. And then I'm going to get into, I'm going to continue to play that clip for you of Novogratz on stage to go into finishing up his thesis. And remember, Novogratz is one of the applicants with Investco for this ETF, and he's a billionaire on Wall Street. He probably has way more connections than the average Joe. So let's get into this kind of evolving thesis of what's going on and figure out, are we potentially going to see an ETF right around the corner? Guys, the filing date is in just over 2 weeks from now, or the next decision date that needs to be made for this ETF. Let's get into the congressional hearing, and we'll talk about this clip toward the end. Let's get into it.
Today, SEC Chair Gary Gensler is going to testify before the House Financial Services Committee. And boy, does he have a lot to answer for. Under Gary Gensler's leadership, I would say failed leadership, the SEC has been an incompetent cop on the beat. Throughout his career, Gensler has been relentlessly loyal to the biggest institutions at the expense of everyday Americans. Today, he's going to face some important questions about that. Gary Gensler has worked to consolidate his own power, even though it means crushing opportunities and, frankly, the financial future of this country. This strategy hasn't been successful for him. As you note, the SEC continues to lose again and again in the courts on its crusade against digital asset innovation.
Okay, so as you can see, this is kind of the evolving thesis that we've been talking about, is even though Gary Gensler is trying to shut down everything in crypto and just the biggest crypto bear ever, as we know from the XRP case and others, the Grayscale case, he's been losing and losing and losing, and now he's getting grilled by Congress. And so we're going to show you a few more clips and then get into what I think is really going on and the resolution that we potentially could see here just around the corner. So this is a big one, right? This is kind of the first clue into the thesis here.
You know, frankly, your time as chairman has highlighted two problems: a Gary Gensler problem and a structural flaw in the SEC. And as I told you in April, I proposed a solution called the SEC Stabilization Act. You're making the case for this bill easier every day you are acting as the chairman by doing rulemaking after rulemaking without any regard to the impact of these rules, or maybe that's the feature for you, I don't know. But it's having a massive impact on our markets. I mean, we have markets that truly are the envy of the world, and why would you disrupt them with processes that are driving capital out of our markets? Not because to avoid our laws, but to find some place where they can get clarity, where they can work with a regulator and get a decision in a path forward. So instead of selectively applied, you're not providing clarity with a rule that's evenly applied. You're intentionally shortened comment periods to limit feedback. And the courts have even called this arbitrary and capricious. You're pushing a woke political and social agenda, and I think abusing your role and the authority of the SEC as cover. So, I think fundamentally, the SEC Stabilization Act would remove the role of chairman. It would preserve the current commissioners. It would add a sixth commissioner. So there would be no more than 3 from any one political party. And so that would provide a path that would make the SEC do what you're avoiding. Frankly, you're front-running Congress, you're front-running the courts, you're front-running even the own administration, and no one has held you to account for that.
So basically what he's saying here, and this is I would vote for this if I was a voting person, But basically this is to, and he has a hashtag here, fire Gary Gensler and restructure the SEC. Basically what he's saying is that Gary Gensler has too much power as a chair of the SEC, and there really doesn't need to be a chair, right? The SEC should be more run as a democratic process. And I actually looked to see how the SEC is structured on ChatGPT, and it was very, very biased to, of course, a pro-narrative perspective of what it wants you to think, that it is completely democratic and that these votes do happen. But we all know that Gary Gensler really is the roadblock here, what's going on. So this SEC Stabilization Act would be to fire Gary Gensler, add a sixth commissioner, and no more than 3 people on each political party, so 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, essentially, and make it more of a democratic voting process. This doesn't mean that necessarily everything would just fly once Gary Gensler is fired, and what he's also going in here to say is that Gary's, the more and more he just defies congressional laws, the more that he makes no sense, the more that he can't answer questions. And in this, I'm not going to go into all the clips here that from this hearing, but there were so many where he just couldn't answer questions, right? And he was one of them was the guy was asking him to, point to somewhere, and I think I'll get into it in a second. Point to where there was any Supreme Court decision that a law was stated where he was honoring that, right? Let's go to the next one. Oh, there was one more funny thing too. He talks about one of the other guys. I didn't put the clip in here, but he's referring to a Pokemon card. He says, if someone buys a Pokemon card, is that considered a security? And Gary's like, well, I don't think so. No. And then he goes, oh, what if someone digitizes that Poke card, makes it into NFT? And does that make it a security? And then he goes, oh, blah, 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 blah. I think that maybe, and so he's saying here that he's not favoring, he's basically saying that technology is bad, and that the legacy kind of speculation on buying assets for appreciation are fine, right? So he's being technologically biased here and not favor of innovating and moving things forward. Also, there's other comments about how he's trying to protect his legacy, the legacy financial institutions like banks and things like that, where he has made a killing, being before. So,
despite your years of rhetoric, like today, I'm convinced you are not an impartial regulator. Instead, it's clear that you are working to consolidate your own power, even though it means crushing opportunities for everyday Americans and, frankly, the financial future of this country. Even the federal courts are highlighting the damage you, sir, are doing to our constituents, and they're telling you that you don't have the legal authority to accomplish your goal of squashing competition in the financial markets. Congress has been telling you that too. Now, Mr. Gensler, I believe our great financial system is the definition of freedom in this country. And congressional policies must provide room for the traditional financial system to evolve alongside the disruptive digital asset ecosystem. That said, it cannot be understated that a common theme throughout your career, sir, is your relentless loyalty to the largest financial institutions at the clear expense of innovation, competition, and everyday Americans.
Exactly. So exactly what I was just saying. Now, this is Representative Richie Torres. He says, I cross-examined SEC Chair Gary Gensler about the term investment contract, which is key to determining his authority over crypto. Gensler struggled to answer basic questions like whether investment contract requires a contract. His evasions are deafening and damning.
Quote, no decision of the Supreme Court has ever found that a scheme that does not involve a contract could qualify as an investment contract. And so do you disagree with that statement? And if so, could you please cite a decision of the Supreme Court that has found an investment contract in the absence of an actual contract?
The SEC has been in front of multiple courts, and investment contract has been...
What's the name of the case, Mr. Gensler? The Supreme Court case that has found an investment contract in the absence of an actual contract. Do you have the name? Can you cite a case?
The SEC over the decade.
Okay, we don't listen, mumble and bubble up, but you can see, and then he asked him again, can you name a case? Can you name a case? And he can't, because there was no Supreme Court case that is trying to back up what Gary is saying, the way he's trying to regulate and use his authority as the SEC. So he's just failing all over the place. We already know, I don't even know if I need to play this clip for you guys, but we already know, actually I'll just do it real quickly.
Do you think Bitcoin is a security?
No, I think I've said this in the past, that I think that it doesn't.
I'm asking you to answer my question now. This is not supposed to be hard.
I know, I said it does not meet the Howey test, which is the law of the land about being an investment.
So it doesn't meet the Howey test. So therefore, It's a commodity. Is that fair?
I would say it's not a secure.
Gary, what do you know? If you like, he knows nothing. He's supposed to be the chairman of the SEC, regulating financial industry, and he has no idea what to even say. Now, this is just for shits and giggles, guys. This is just hilarious. Like this lady, what is her, Loomis or something? I forget, Senator Loomis. What is it? Yeah, this listen. Like what is going on? Representing Maxine Waters, that's what it is. Like, why do we have these dinosaurs in here regulating our industry? I mean, there's like, and with all due respect, some of these guys are pretty old that were quite informed and on our side, on pro-crypto side, but listen to this.
Since we started out on Bitcom, let's go further into crypto. Chair Gensler, I've heard you often say there is mass non-compliance by crypto firms in the marketplace today. I'm very concerned with what sounds like gross violations of the law that end in investors getting ripped off. The failures and fraud of crypto firms like Terra Luna, for example, cost investors as much as $60 billion, which was larger than the Madoff Ponzi scheme in 2008.
The Madoff Ponzi scheme in 2008. Why don't you talk about FTX, Maxine Waters, while you're blowing kisses to SBF? But anyway, that's what we're going to get into next. But so Bitcom and the Ponzi schemes. Okay, so here's where we're going to get into here, right? So what is Mike Novogratz talking about, right? This guy, and look at this. So we know that ARC was delayed again, or the decision, but we have here the next deadlines for decisions, and Mike Novogratz said we're going to have good news in October with the ETF trading by December. So you can see all these deadlines: October 17th, October 16th, October 17th, October 17th, October 17th, October 17th, October 19th. So we have this big decision to be made in just over 2 weeks from now. And again, a lot of people, and what Novogratz said in the first clip I played was that it's not consensus. But what I keep telling you guys in these videos, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you're not already, because you can get this alpha and you'll be ahead of the game here, is that all of these companies want to get their Bitcoin ETFs approved when the price is low. Every single day, more and more billionaires and wealthy people are buying Bitcoin up, and there's a very little float or circulating supply left. And every day there's billions and billions and hundreds of billions of dollars in Bitcoin volume traded, and that's just mostly traders and institutions, hedge funds and things like that. But some percentage of that every single day is buy pressure from people who do not plan on selling. So every single day there's less and less circulating supply, which leads to supply shock once all these ETFs get approved and people want to come in and buy it. And everyone knows that. And if any of these ETFs get approved before anyone else, they're going to be the first to the table. And while they're getting their investors in at the best possible prices, it's going to start to go up and up and up and up and up. And so if these things aren't all approved at the same time, whoever is the first to the market is going to get the best opportunity, because that's how these guys make money. You make money by making your investors money and taking a fee off of the profits that you make for your investors, right? As well as management fees. And so this really is a race, and there's a lot of pressure to get this thing done. So what is going on with Gary, right? And so what we've been talking about here so far is he's getting grilled by Congress, and is even moves to fire him. And, he's appointed by Joe Biden, which is horrible. This horrible administration, horrible regulation by enforcement, horrible all across the board. But what made Gary flip so bearish? Remember, he was a professor at the university talking about how great Algorand was and the crypto industry. And now that he was in bed with FTX and SBF, he's really flipped a switch, and now he's on a crusade because he was embarrassed because he was supporting SBF and going out to nice dinners with him and scratching each other's back. But let's listen to this.
You refuse to be transparent with Congress regarding your interactions with FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. That's the investigation we started last Congress. Finally, your lack of responsiveness to this committee's legitimate oversight continues to be unacceptable. And I want to finish here. In February, the committee made multiple requests for documents to the Securities Exchange Commission. This is normal congressional oversight. Yet 7 months later, the committee has not received a single non-public document that was not part of a FOIA production. As I said, our patience is wearing thin. The SEC is not above the law, nor is it unique. Other financial regulators have routinely complied with congressional oversight. So let me be clear. I do not want to be the first chairman of this committee to issue a subpoena to the Securities Exchange Commission. And you should not want to be the first SEC chair to receive a congressional subpoena. Either we find a path forward where the SEC recognizes Congress as a co-equal branch of government and is responsive to our oversight duties, or my option is to issue a subpoena. It's time for you to consider the lasting consequences of your actions, and what that means to the Securities Exchange Commission's reputation long term.
So basically here, Senator McHenry is threatening Gary Gensler and saying, man, you need to start coughing up these documents we've been asking you for a long time so we can dig into your involvement in FTX. Otherwise, if you don't, we're just going to go force it on you by subpoenaing, giving you a subpoena. And what is that going to mean for the reputation of the SEC and you as a person? And also the same kind of psychology that cops use by saying, like, you either work with us and you comply and we're going to be less harsh on you, or if you make us force it out of you by other tactics, we're going to come down on you with the full force of the law. So Gary, this is the same thing, guys, this is the same thing that's happening with President Trump, right? President Trump, no one from the powers that be want him to be in office. And the reason why he's getting indictment after indictment after indictment after indictment after trouble and trouble and trouble, and they want to put him away in jail for like multiple lifetimes, is because they don't want him in office because they know he's going to F shit up, right? He's going to come in there and do what nobody wants him to do, which is all the big corporations and the elites. They want, they like Joe Biden because Joe Biden's a puppet that they can just control, and Joe Biden makes no decisions for himself, where Trump is independent. But the same thing is going on here, where if Trump just concedes to the powers that be and just steps down and doesn't run for president, all the charges and indictments for him go away instantly. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. And this is the same thing that I feel is happening right now with these markets right now, is there's been more and more and more pressure being put on Gary Gensler. This is probably coming from BlackRock and Fidelity and all these other things to make sure that he concedes and gives this ETF an approval so that people can move on with their life, or they're going to make his life a living hell. And this is a direct threat, in my opinion. Now let's go to the last clip that we have here. We can talk about Novogratz, talking about what's going on.
And that would mean you probably have an ETF actually trading by early December. I don't think people understand how important it is. And so, Invesco, who's our partner in this, we want to win, right? But Kathy wants to win, BlackRock wants to win, Fidelity wants to win. There are probably 7 or 8 credible competitors that I think will launch the same day. And so you step back, while we want to win, we also want Bitcoin to go higher. And think of the sales forces. You've got BlackRock sales force, Invesco sales force, ARC sales force, Fidelity sales force. So you have an entire new group of people picking up the phone. Because Bitcoin is always sold, it's never bought. One thing I learned starting in 2013, when I had to explain what the damn Byzantine general's problem was to people to kind of get them to buy Bitcoin. Now it's a macro asset. And so I think this is a complete game changer. Prices are always set on the margin, right? There are not a lot of sellers. Right now there are not a lot of buyers or sellers. Right? We have very low liquidity in these markets. But you're going to start seeing buyers, and they're not going to buy and sell right away. So you're going to suck up a lot of supply, and prices are going to go a lot higher.
So guys, this is exactly what I've been saying. And shout out to everyone who, I don't know how Elio got this clip. I look for it on YouTube, but shout out to Elio Trades. If you're not following him, go follow him. And Ivan on Tech as well, and everybody else. But listen, there you have it. I mean, Mike Novogratz says that there's going to be positive news in October that's going to lead to Bitcoin ETF, spot ETF that we're all hoping for, trading by December. So this all seems like it's leading up to what we believe in the thesis. Again, he also talks about the sales force. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while, this has been everything we've been talking about on this channel for the past few weeks. So guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Are we going to get an ETF this year, or are we going to wait till next year, or is it not going to happen at all? We saw the SEC shut down ARK Invest, but in my opinion, that's a small, tiny one. Of course, BlackRock wants to win and be the first to the table on this. I think that's probably what's going to happen. But guys, this is all the reason to be bullish when the whole market seems bearish and everyone seems bearish and everything, all the news and the hit pieces and everything we've been talking about. You have to look at the big picture of what's really going on here. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up today. I hope that you enjoyed. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.